If you're a doctor and think personal branding is just for influencers, think again. In this episode of the Investing for Doctors podcast, we're joined by marketing strategist Kan Huang, who reveals why your reputation now lives online and how that can either build trust at scale or quietly cost you referrals, respect, and opportunities you never even knew you missed.
The reason why you build personal brands or you grow your personal reputation is fundamentally know, like, and trust factor. The more known, the more liked, the more trust that you have, the more you endear yourself both to your peers and also your desired audience as well.
We unpack the exact framework Kan uses, and spoiler, it has nothing to do with going viral and everything to do with controlling your digital footprint. You'll learn the 7-11-4 rule, which explains how people decide to trust you, why every doctor should treat LinkedIn like their virtual CV, the importance of leveraging platforms like Google and Instagram, and the surprisingly simple ways to protect your reputation from being hijacked by old news, poor reviews, or even your name being mispronounced.
If we're purely just talking about on the basis of like helping people, which is what you all go into the profession for, I imagine, on the basis of like, how can we maximize the impact of what special skill and gift that you guys have? And if you can't be found, are you not doing a disservice to the very people that you're trying to help out? Why is it so hard to actually find the answer that we're actually looking for?
This is something I see every day of the week. We as the professionals are also partly to blame because we are not putting that information out there in a way that people can find out about it. And I think that's the power of advertising, marketing, or your personal branding. If you're serious about your long-term career, your professional relationships, and future-proofing your income as a medical professional, this episode is not optional. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another installment of the Investing for Doctors podcast. Now, today, we're going to do something slightly different, and we're not going to be talking just about money. We're going to be talking about how to invest in the biggest asset that you have in life, which is yourself. And now, coming with this team, I've got a guest here with me. His name is Kan Huang, and he's actually the person that helps me run these podcasts.
Yeah.
Welcome, Kan.
Yeah, thanks for having me, B. Appreciate it.
So I think this is one of the topics that a lot of people sort of overlook because they, when they first go out into the workforce, they forget that you have a personal brand or a reputation in that way. Yeah. And sometimes that reputation can precede you for better or for worse. Yeah. And, you are, what do you actually do? And perhaps... give us a little idea of what you do, and so that we can have a further conversation about it.
Yeah, well, look, firstly, thanks for having me as well. I think, this is not the typical type of episode that you've had on the podcast previously. For myself, I am a business owner. I run my own marketing agency. Obviously, we support Investing for Doctors, and it's called Social Wave. So what we basically do is we focus on digital marketing and more specifically in content. And a lot of the content is actually focused on personal brands, because what we're realizing, what we're seeing at the moment is that there is a real push towards individual and personal brands, whether it's digital, whether it's offline, in the workplace, because personal brands is just another way of describing your reputation, basically. Yeah. And so we help, business owners and individuals pretty much grow their personal brands in a positive way and achieve whatever it is that they want. So that could be you want to make more money, you want to generate more customers, or you want to spread more awareness of your cause and things like that as well. So that's basically what we do.
Okay, your messaging across, which is something I think a lot of doctors like doing because they like talking about their specialties, or they like talking about certain trends in the world, and that then sometimes act as a lead generation for their own businesses, or sometimes it's just for interest, isn't it?
Well, that's right. I think there was actually a study that went out, and I know this is all doctors linked to it. Please don't kill me over this, but Google did a white paper roughly, I think about 10 years ago, and I think it was called 0 Moments of Truth. And I think you can still Google this to this day. And what they actually found was, Google's the king of data. They track everything. And the reason why you build personal brands or you grow your personal reputation is fundamentally know, like, and trust factor. The more known, the more liked, the more trust that you have, the more you endear yourself both to your peers and also your desired audience as well.
Yeah.
And what Google basically found was it found 3 main metrics. The first metric was if someone spends 7 hours with you, meaning that's either in person or if we're talking digital these days, they're consuming 7 hours of content. So, you know, the audience, if they're listening to you, 7 hours of Dr. Bi, you grow a relationship with them, right? And it's this concept of what we call parasocial relationships. So if you think about your favorite celebrity, your favorite sports athlete, your favorite doctor, you feel like you know them. Like if you met them in real life because you've spent so much time with them, you feel like you know them. And parasocial just means one way. So they don't know you, but you know them. So that was like the first metric. Like 7 hours is what's necessary for someone to highly, highly know, like, and trust you. The second one is 11 pieces of content or 11 touch points. And that basically refers to 11 interactions. So again, if it's in person, it's like we hang out 11 times. If it's on digital, it's like I've seen you on a podcast or I've watched your videos on socials or I've listened to you on audio. Then we've got the last one, which is basically 4 different locations. So that could be, you know, see you at a conference. I see you when we hang out with our peers. I see you on a podcast. I see you on social media. So the 4 different angles that you come in at, and then when you combine that with a 7-11-4, all of a sudden means you take someone from who doesn't know you, so basically a cold audience, to someone who highly, highly know, likes, and trusts you. And I always use the analogy. I was like, you don't ask for marriage on the first date. You go on a few dates together. You get to know each other. Some people do get married on the first date. They have a shotgun wedding in Vegas. But what we end up seeing is a lot of the times that people need to spend time together in order to build know, like, and trust factor. And like, I think as doctors, you think about it, you're like, well, why is it that some patients decide to work with me versus somebody else? Why is it that some people choose to decide to, you know, why do you decide to choose to work with certain individuals as well and form a team? Which clinic or which practice you go at, which hospital you work at? It's because of that 7-11-4. And the more that you head towards that in a positive kind of way, the more likely you're about to craft a better personal brand overall. So this is good to put some metrics around it, but that's kind of like the data that came out of Google themselves when they researched it.
Wow. Okay. So, you know, when you say 4 different locations, it could be like, oh yeah, I've seen this person working in the same hospital as me. I've had an interaction when I referred someone to them. I saw them comment on, say, a Facebook post, and then I saw them at a conference. That's like 4 different.
Like I'll give you an example, not a person, but like I'm wearing Whoop, right? And Whoop seems to be like the new Fitbit.
Okay.
And at first, when I had one person I knew who was using Whoop, I was like, another fitness fad, whatever, health fad. And then I noticed, my staff member was wearing it. And then I saw a Whoop ad on Facebook. And then all of a sudden, my favorite podcaster is wearing it, talking about Whoop. So that direction, all of a sudden, you're like, what the hell? Like, this is like, there's this concept like that's coming from different directions. And as humans, I think like, if you're an early adopter to anything or you kind of move faster than most, you don't need that much. But for the vast majority, I think if you think about that bell curve, it's like you're the early adopters. The majority of people are sort of in that top of the bell curve where they need enough significant enough touch points and angles to go, you know what, I'm going to give this a try. I sit in that for sure. I'm not an early adopter, but like a Whoop, for example, would be something like that. But to your example of a doctor, I see it in different angles, and all of a sudden you're like, cool, I feel like I know this person. I trust this person more.
And that comes back to a very interesting conversation that we often see in our various chat groups is like what drives referral behaviors, right? You know, for example, I've got a patient in front of me and they're coming in and say, I need a hip replacement. It's like, there's such a large number of surgeons you could possibly refer to.
Yes.
And by and large, the first person you refer to, the patient will stick with them because that's a very sticky referral, and patients often trust the doctors that, you know, who they refer to, even though sometimes as the referrer, you have no idea. You have no idea how capable the person that you send them to. So, you know, as a patient, as the doctor that's referring it, you might have seen them somewhere. You might have maybe worked with them in the past, or, you know, they have come and done a lunchtime chat within the practice. So something like that actually builds up that, you know, the know, like, trust factor, isn't it?
Correct. Okay. Like I'll give you an example. We work with a cardiologist, and a cardiologist obviously needs referrals from GPs in order to get patients through the door. So what does he do? He spends a lot of time. Initially, he was doing it manually. He was visiting medical practice to medical practice, GP clinics, and he was building relationships with individual GPs by doing so. So in essence, he's doing the 7-11-4 without realizing, because he didn't know about this. Most people don't know this. But if you think about just in classic business cases, like business development, what do you do? Oh, let's catch up for a coffee. Let's hang out together. Let's get to know each other. You know, almost kind of become friends somewhat, right? Or at least quite chummy in terms of acquaintances. And oftentimes business, and you know, we're both Chinese by background, is the concept of guanxi or relationships, which is the better the relationship, the better business that you do overall. I think the Chinese have worked it out for a very, very long time when it comes to business, right?
Absolutely.
So this cardiologist, for example, came to me and he's like, cool, this is what I'm currently doing, but how do I actually grow this more so that I can get more patients? I can build a better reputation in the market. And I said to him, I said, well, you're doing this manually one-to-one. The best way to do it is now one-to-many. He says, well, how do I do that? I said, well, there's two options. You go to conferences where you have all of your captive market, which are GPs, for example, and you present and you build know, like, and trust factor through an hour of power just presenting, or you do it on digital, which is start a podcast like you're doing, have a social media channel, you do a YouTube channel, or you write blogs, you know, for SEO reasons as well. So there's like many, many different ways you can do it. But then all of a sudden, each time he puts a video out, he's getting 500-600 views. And the platforms, and we can get into it if we want to, but the platforms are very good at finding your exact market. Because if he's saying, if you're a GP, well, then all of a sudden the platforms know, and they'll go looking for GPs to put in front of you as well. So it's highly scalable of your time. And we know how busy doctors are. You know, do you have time to go one-to-one to all of this stuff and build that reputation? Maybe, maybe not.
Because as a cardiologist, you're not really trying to advertise to patients, because that's not your target audience.
That's right.
Because there's the referral barrier there.
Correct.
So you wanna be actually in front of your referral base.
Yes.
It? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. One of our friends, Tuan, who I know has been on the podcast from Durotax, is the master at it. Yes. He doesn't rely on, well, I mean, he gets now a lot of direct business from property investors who are wanting to engage his quantity surveyors to do a tax depreciation schedule. But actually, I know for a fact, because he's a client of ours, that 80% or a big chunk of his revenue comes from accountants, and the fact that he markets and builds relationships with accountants, because the accountant is the one that then refers a bunch of clients to you, the same way as a GP refers a bunch of patients to specialists in this case as well.
So his audience is therefore the accountants, or
correct,
the property investor, rather than your average person that owns a property.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. And so you brought up one thing. We're both Asians, and I've noticed that you've got an Asian name, and I've got an Asian name. And now, when I first came to Australia, everyone asked me, "Oh, like, why do you not have an Anglo name?"
Oh,
yeah, because I mean that seemed to be the in vogue back in those days, and I always felt that I never needed to have one. But as some of our listeners actually know me, B is actually not my first name. It's actually my last name. But B is so much easier to pronounce and say than Mian, which is my first name.
Right.
And in fact, I only have two characters in my name. And as you know, as a Chinese person, you say your surname first, and then your character.
Yes.
So in China, people would have addressed me as Bi Mian, and so it went as B. Unfortunately, it's spelled B-I, so sometimes I get people coming to me and say, "Hey, are you bi?" And then I sometimes just go like, "Yeah, for you maybe." and I make
Do you
a
correct
joke
him? You're like, yeah.
So I can be bi for you. That's fine. I make a joke about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, how does that? A lot of doctors and clinicians are actually from non-Anglo backgrounds, and what does the name say about the individual? And perhaps, tell me a bit more about your name, because I know that that's not your full name. Kan Huang is not your full name.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of, obviously in your case, it was 2 characters. Most Chinese people have 3 characters. They have a kind of almost like a middle name. So my Chinese name is, if we do it backwards, it's Huan Xiao Kan.
Yeah.
And Huan being the family name, yellow, and then Xiao, which basically means, and you're better at Chinese than I am, which is
understanding and enlightening.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then Kan just means like, gift of the gab can speak, which is very apt sitting on a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we were trading a funny story beforehand. My dad was one of those funny people who, and now he's got this cult following where someone has a newborn and they go to him for the name, because every kid he's named has actually reflected the personality of the name that he's given as well. Yeah. There's a lot of thought put into, I guess, the meaning of someone's name in Chinese as well, right? Like people actually go to experts in China basically to do this as well. And so that's my Chinese name. And I think, when we first, I wasn't born here, I was born in China. I came when I was 2 years old. So similar to you, that was the name I was given. I don't think I was ever felt necessarily any kind of. Actually, I hadn't had anyone ask me. They're like, "Oh, why don't you have a Anglo name at all?" Which is, I was quite surprised when you said that as well. I think that for me, it never even crossed my mind that my name would then have some sort of impact on, let's just call it my brand, my personal brand, my reputation, my employability, things like that. But now, as someone who does personal branding a lot of the time, I certainly hear a lot. You know, I've also got my own podcast called Level Asian, which is, you know, we talk a lot about this, and we're just trading with Senthin, who's our camera guy off camera as well. And this whole concept of like, hey, as soon as someone changes from their migrant name to a Anglo name, then all of a sudden increased number of interviews, increased number of job offers, and things like that as well. I think the doctor's profession is an interesting one though, because, and I'm curious to get your thoughts, is does it have like a reverse effect? Because it's like some people look at it and go, you know, Dr. B, for example, Chinese or call it South Asian background, which oftentimes there's a lot of that in this profession. And then people go, oh, look, I want to work with actually doctors like this. Or like, what do you see on your side when it comes to the names?
I think having a difficult to pronounce name always has a challenge to it. And I think as East Asians, our names are relatively short, but not always the easiest to pronounce. You know, there's another version, you know, your surname is Huang, but there's another version of that, which is which is NG.
Right.
And I just find nobody knows how to pronounce it.
Yes.
And I'll say, yeah, Dr. Ng. But then there's people going Dr. NG.
Or like Huynh, I think, for the Vietnamese, which is also the same character.
Yeah, exactly, right? And in some instances, that can be very catchy. Like in my last name is B, which is very catchy. You know, people make fun of you're the B team, which is where I work at Westmead Hospital. We have two teams. One is the A team, one's the B team.
Oh, I see.
And without fail, I've been there for years now. Without fail, someone will ask me, "Oh, are you B or are you A today?"
The dad jokes come out.
And then the moan. But it's fun, you know. That way it shows that you're connected. And but to answer your question, I feel like how easy someone's name to pronounce does make a huge difference. Because if I'm, say, referring to someone and I can't pronounce his name, it just appears a bit weird. And perhaps, I guess, for the South Asians viewing and the Chinese or the East Asian viewing, it's there's different drawbacks because some of the South Asian names are very, very long.
Super long.
They're super long, whereas they're easy to pronounce as long as you can phonetically break it up into pieces.
Correct, yes.
Whereas the Chinese ones, like there's lots of people who just have no clue because this is a mixture of dialect and mixture of names and pronunciations, I mean. So yeah, like it's a very interesting question. I don't think it really affects it so much.
Okay.
But I think having a pronounceable first name
makes it easier.
Is easier.
Yeah.
And I guess in a way that I have branded myself is that I just go by B. Like you can call me Dr. B, you can call me B, you can call me Bi, I'll respond to it. Like, you know, even my website, it's Dr. Bi. You know, it's Dr. B. That's it. I don't add Mian into it, but it does drive a lot of confusion because like people will.
I was confused when I first started. I was trying to figure it out.
And that's why I grew up in Singapore, right? So in Singapore, you always get addressed by your surname first.
Correct.
And we don't have this concept of the last name. It's always surname. It's surname, not last name. So the order is also reversed as well. And when I first came to here, I actually struggled a bit in the first year or two, figuring out what's the easiest way for people to call me. And I remember when I was a very little child, we lived in the UK for a while. And my parents, and this was in the UK where they're probably not as culturally, diverse back in those days. I was actually called Martin.
Martin, as in they gave you that name?
Yeah, my parents said, "Oh, you know what? Just use Martin."
Fascinating.
Yeah, my mom was Teresa, and I can't remember what my dad was called.
Okay.
And like, we don't ever use those names anymore.
You haven't used it since?
No, I haven't used it since.
Yeah. It's your UK name.
Yeah, it's my UK name. And maybe Martin is because it starts with M. My name is Mian, and it's it might be the letter, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, I think in these professions, and I also work with a lot of high trust individuals, like we're talking like accountants, for example, who honestly the name, I find generally, I mean, outside of the medical space, really doesn't have a huge impact. But I think more importantly, you mentioned it real quick, which is when a GP, for example, or a doctor refers a patient to somebody else, another professional, you are piggybacking off the trust equity or the relationship capital that you've built with that GP.
Yeah.
And so you kind of just take the GP's or the doctor's word for it. You're like, well, if you say they're good, then I'm just going to say that I'm going to treat them as good.
Yeah.
So unless you have like a pretty terrible experience afterwards, you're generally like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Whereas I think in other lines of work, there's a lot more due diligence and homework being done on these types of referrals that are being made.
Yes.
And that's just because for lack of better words, it's like the honor of being a medical professional is that you are highly trusted in society.
Highly trusted profession.
Yeah,
and,
correct.
The assumption is that everyone who goes into it are trustworthy to a degree. Yeah.
And there's also a code of ethics and
of
standards
course, and all of that.
you
The standards,
uphold
there's our regulators, breathing down our necks and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that the other thing that we see a lot with is this concept of like how I think like as being someone who has my own GP, my own doctor as well. I go there and I very much so just go, hey, you need to do this. I just go, yep, I'll do it. Like there's no problems with it whatsoever as well. But I think more and more what's happening right now with a lot of people is that they're now being a little bit more selective about who they do.
Questioning that as
well.
Right.
It used to be, I remember it used to be like, medical center down the road. Yeah. We'll just go there. And you'll just call the reception or you'll book an appointment. You don't even care which doctor that you're seeing.
Yeah, as long as it's a doctor.
Yeah. And what's really interesting right now, like I'm 35, I'm a millennial, but I'm talking to a lot of Gen Zs, and a lot of Gen Zs are now super specific about who their doctor is.
Yeah.
They have like their own specialist. They got their own psychologist, their own therapist.
Yeah.
And they're all Googling. They're all on social media. They're all reviewing them. They're all doing the due diligence. And one of the things that I'm a big advocate for is just going, well, how visible firstly are you?
Yes.
Can people find you? And then do you have control over what people see of you, right? Which I know you have obviously your own opinions on that as well.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And it depends on where you are as a doctor. If you're a junior doctor working in a hospital, it's probably not really necessary, but the moment you start becoming a fully fellowed consultant or a specialist or a GP specialist, people are going to Google your name because they want to know who they're seeing, right? And that's so easy and accessible right now. It's almost weird if they Googled you and nothing comes up, because then you'll be like, is this person a real doctor? Yeah. Right? Yep. And one of the other things that I'm seeing is that our regulator, APRA, which is AHPRA, has a website that has a directory of every single doctor's details. You have to obviously search them to find out who they are and all that sort of thing. But if someone goes onto that website, types your name, which you use as your professional name, and they're not on there, then it's just like, that's a bit awkward.
It is.
Yeah. And so I think there's increasingly more and more people who's doing that. I know I do that because I actually have to vet all the members that come through our Facebook page. So I'm probably one of the few people that just puts in people's details all the time. And when I don't get someone's details, when I put it in, I'm just like, oh, are you actually a real doctor?
You start questioning things.
Are you a fake account and trying to get into the groups kind of thing? Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the first thing. And the second thing is that, if you've done research or you've done other activities in your life, which is sort of in the public space, then those things are going to come up first. So if you were, say, a professional sports person, and a great example is like Jana Pittman. She used to be a sportsman, very famous sportsman, and she's now working as a doctor. Yeah. So when you Google someone like that, you have all of those accomplishments, and you have all the good media posts, and you have all the negative media posts, depending on how you were as a
100%.
Public figure. Yes. Right? If you were a public figure before medicine, that will come and follow you.
Yep. Right. I can give you two examples, one medical, non-medical. So the non-medical one was, I work with a lot of CEOs or business owners who are just, I know a very particular prominent one who was like a ex CEO of a well-known football club in Australia, and then moved on to doing some government work as a CEO as well. And long story short was, lots of issues around that, and to put it lightly, like got thrown under the bus, and so had a lot of press that kind of painted him in a very bad light. And he came to me recently and was like, hey, how do we actually control this narrative? Because it was such a problem for him, and he was losing so many opportunities because people were just like looking him up and going, what the hell has he done? Like, I don't want to get involved with this guy. And, whether the truth or not, I mean, I don't know. But the point is that if you're somebody who you don't have control over what's being found online about you, you're already on the back foot. You've got issues there. And then the medical example is I've got an OB who is incredible at doing social media content. And all he does is pretty much show you footage of him at work, whether it's like him in his scrubs about to deliver a baby, or he's just like, he's doing consultation days that day, and he's just in his normal attire, and he's just talking about, I just had a meeting with this patient. So he's basically what I would call, he's documenting, not creating. And a lot of doctors or just actually people in general, business owners, they think that they need to create. I'm like, you don't need to create, you just need to document. You simply just imagine if you had a camera person follow you around, or you had someone shadowing you, and you just want to show them what life was like, right? That 7-Eleven 4. He is booked out for I don't know how many, months or years, right? And it's incredible to see that, because he just doesn't have any shortage of work. But what's also happened as a result is he's now having doors open up where he's speaking on stage. He's been brought onto podcasts. He's been able to, I guess, talk about what he loves and his expertise by doing so, simply because all he did was just show a little bit more of what his day-to-day looks like. Nothing more, nothing less. And it's just incredible to see that this is possible. And what's really funny is, like, just as someone who works with quite a few medical professionals, I'm like, when we survey the lay of the land of like medical professionals doing this, there's very few. Very, very few. I could count on one hand how many I've found who even have a website sometimes. So I think it's like quite critical to just have control and just even claim, your space, whether it's your website, your personal brand, your social media, things like that.
And I think one of the things where, we're talking about claiming your personal brand or claiming the narrative is that when you're out there and the moment you start working with another practice, for instance, or some other business, they're going to put your profile on there. And what you end up is, when people search your name, all they're going to see is that profile, because they've made the effort to put a website up, to put some search engine optimization up. And you fall into and when people see that, you fall into this fallacy of what you see is all there is. So you might end up being pigeonholed in that you're only doing one thing, and not everything else. For instance, I've had a clinician that worked with us, and she came to our sort of regional center as a fly out specialist, and we obviously put her details onto our website. And since then, when people Google her name, it's like, oh, you're working regionally. They draw that connection. But then you forget that, wait a minute, probably like something like, 80, 90% of the time, she's actually working in the city. So if you don't have that control where the first thing coming out is your own website or your own, say, LinkedIn profile or whatever, you lose that narrative. And I don't think anyone has done anything negative to do that. But it's just the nature of the business world.
I think it's like the thing about the medical field that I've observed, and oftentimes is the same problem as accountants, which is the same problem as lawyers, is that you don't really have a shortage of work. And, generally speaking, it's fairly straightforward to find work or to get patients, right? And then what ends up happening is general importance that you place on finding additional patients or business doesn't seem to be a priority as well. But again, to my point of like what we're seeing, this new generation of, people are deciding on is that they're happy to travel all the way to the other side of town to go see the right doctor. Like, for example, I have a 2.5-year-old. I'm quite happy to travel all the way either into the CBD or down southwest or northwest to go see the right pediatrician. right? Or the right, like I go see an allergist in St. Leonard's and I live all the way in Norwest and it takes me 40 minutes. I don't care because I'd rather get the right care for the right individual than to just go, oh, that's within
yes, I get that.
A 1 kilometer radius of where I am.
Yeah, it's not the proximity.
It doesn't influence it nearly as much as it used to.
Doesn't influence anymore as it used to, right? No. And the other thing that I really need to point out is that in the increasing subspecialization of medicine, for example, you're I use the example neurology as an example. There are at least a dozen subspecialty fields of neurology, and if you're an MS neurologist, you perhaps are not doing as much in the epilepsy space or in the Parkinson's disease space or in the dementia space. Whereas now you have neurologists that still do general neurology, but they have a subspecialty interest.
Yes.
And they get better and better and better at their subspecialty interests.
Yes.
And that information is not readily available.
It's so hard.
It's so hard to find because when you get referred to a neurologist, for example, you have migraines, right? It's a headache neurologist. Most neurologists will do headaches, but not most neurologists will do the advanced therapies in neurology in headaches. Some of them will do Botox. Some of them are not Botox trained, for instance. And you don't want to be referred to the wrong person, and then only to realize, this person can't actually offer me what I need.
Yes.
And so there is an increasing need to get your specialty interest or subspecialty interest out there. So that when the when the GP is referring them, they know who to refer to. And another example is orthopedic surgeons. Orthopedics has now subspecialized so much that there are people who do just ankles, or they do just shoulders, for instance. I mean, most of them will be able to do hip and knees because that's the bulk of the work. But you can almost divide up the body by joints now, and you have a subspecialist orthopedic surgeon that's really good at something. And recently I had a friend whose son had a stress fracture in his foot that wasn't healing, and he asked me, he's like, who are the 2 or 3 foot surgeons that is reputable, that looks after kids, right? That's like subset of a subset of a subset.
Correct. Yeah.
And
I'll give you an example of my mother-in-law. If she, may she rest in peace. She passed away 2 years ago from mucosal melanoma, which is a very rare form of melanoma. And when we discovered her diagnosis, which was about 5 years ago, she was complaining about having a hard time swallowing and things like that. And I remember she got the diagnosis, and then we were trying to figure out which specialist to go see because the GP was scratching his head going,
the GP had no clue.
GP was like, I have no idea who I refer you to. And then so I had to go through the Melanoma Institute, do all my homework, find somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who, I don't know, did a study on, I was reading peer-reviewed journals on mucosal melanoma, trying to find a doctor in Sydney or in Australia, let alone that. And I finally landed on an amazing doctor. And then that particular specialist then had to refer me onto a great surgeon, obviously, for the removal of the tumor and that sort of stuff for surgery as well. So it's just like, and then can you just imagine as an individual, like someone like us, a family member, or maybe like in my case, my mother-in-law, trying to navigate this process because,
you're savvy enough, but like your mother-in-law would not be.
She wouldn't have had any idea, and she would have had a lesser chance. And if we're purely just talking about it on the basis of like helping people, which is what you all go into the profession for, I imagine, is on the basis of like, how can we maximize the impact of what special skill and gift that you guys have?
Yes.
And if you can't be found, are you not doing a disservice to the very people that you're trying to help out in this process as well? And I just couldn't believe it as just an experience. I was like, why is it so hard to actually find the answer that we're actually looking for?
It's to be very honest, this is something I see every day of the week. And we know there are people who are good at something, but they're not going to those people.
World's best kept secret.
I know, it is. And I think we as the professionals are also partly to blame because we are not putting that information out there in a way that people can find out about it. And I think that's the power of, advertising, marketing, or your personal branding. Which, I am now learning more and more about as I go on this journey with you and, through investing for doctors, is that, the power of that. personal brand, because I still sometimes go to conference and, you know, people will recognize me and come up to me and say, oh, hey, you know, you said this and this and this, and that really meant things.
They feel like they know you, right?
And they feel like they know me.
Yeah.
And I was just like, whereas me on the other side is like, okay, you know, I did say that, you know, great.
But I don't know who you are.
I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and the thing that I always ask is that, what is your Facebook profile name? And then they'll say, oh, this is me. And I was like, yes.
You remember it from the Facebook groups.
Yeah, because I actually have quite a good memory. And, you know, when I give sort of profound things, if someone has replied to me, I usually will be able to like remember what I've said if it was something very specific.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, one of the connections we talked about in it's actually a very, very rewarding sort of
it's extremely rewarding. I think it's probably the thing that I hear all the time working with people who basically have been able to put themselves out there and then impact people that they otherwise didn't realize that they've impacted.
Yeah.
And they then get this kind of feedback when they actually meet the person. And then that person oftentimes says, it's like, I feel like I know you already, or I trust you. I just want to work with you. Like, is that not a beautiful thing versus somebody who goes, tell me who you are. Why should I work with you? Yeah. And you're trying to convince them versus the other way around where you've already done that. And I think that, you know, a lot of the time, you know, I always say it's like, because, you know, medical professionals, from what I've seen, is highly analytical, very, you know, detail orientated, but usually that oftentimes flies in the face of putting yourself out there because it's the typical perfection, you know, and I said perfection is the enemy of good. Yeah. And I think action then creates momentum versus the other way around. And usually the ones who try not to be too judgmental of themselves, try not to be too hard on themselves, and they just simply, again, document and they don't create and they just put content out there, do incredibly well, because it's not about the production quality. It's not about, you know, how long you've been doing for. It's purely a game of just like, are you willing to just simply put yourself out there a little bit more? And it's such, I feel like it's such a low barrier of entry for the medical profession, because I work with also coaches. Like, try marketing a 21-year-old life coach. That's really freaking hard, because there is no regulatory, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not a trusted, you know, and so that's an extreme example, but I oftentimes work with people who are very happy to put in the elbow grease or putting themselves out there, but it's really hard to convince people to believe in what they say. But for doctors, you don't have this problem. You simply just need to show up, turn on the camera, and it's like not even DSLR, just like a phone, and just talk to the camera. Yeah, I feel like you can just vomit knowledge, and it, like, people that knowledge is very easily accessible, and people will listen to that. Absolutely, yeah. And I've got clients of mine who are doctors getting hundreds of thousands of views on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and they're getting either booked out or they're getting inundated, or it's opening up opportunities for them that they never would have dreamt of as well. It's incredible. And, you know, you used to have to, you know, pay for the distribution. You have to pay TV, radio, and that sort of stuff to get your name out there. You don't have to do that anymore. And I think the other thing that I do see is oftentimes you need to figure out a way that you can sort of communicate to your exact target audience, which in this case oftentimes are your patients, right? Or if you're a specialist, in this case, like GPs. So I think specialists is a little bit more forgiving, where, like, you know, GPs probably understand your language to a certain extent. But if you're a GP who's trying to, say, market to, you know, patients, for example, you almost have to do, you know, what we call the Feynman technique. Richard Feynman, who was brilliant, this physicist who could explain things to a child, and a child would be able to understand. And I think the skill of communication, along with building a personal brand, is the two biggest skills that I think medical professionals could probably take advantage of, and then, you know, pretty much negotiate their own reality when it comes to this as well. Absolutely. So I think we've, you know, talked about the power of personal brand. Now, what are the actionable steps? You know, I'm going to start off first. I think when you get out there, you have to have a LinkedIn profile. I think that's a bare minimum. Would you say? Yes. Yeah. Especially, again, if you're a specialist as well, even more so. I have like the kind of, like, I call it the big 5 or 6. You've got LinkedIn. I think more and more now with Instagram. Instagram is very prevalent for medical professionals as well. I think your personal brand, you need to have a website, and it doesn't have to be anything complicated. It can just be a one page bio, who you are, where you practice, what your hours, how to get in touch with you, right? Your contact details. I don't know why for some reason. And I think off the back of that also is having a Google business profile, because the amount of times where it's like you don't have a personal brand website, you don't have a LinkedIn profile, and you don't have a Google business profile, it's freaking hard for people to find you.
Now, I'm going to ask you this question. With a Google business profile, and we can talk about this more in the future, do you put your personal name on that profile? Or, say if you work in a practice with 4 other doctors, say 4 other GPs, and you have the GP practice brand, and then do you put your own name onto that location as well?
So you will always put your personal name. I know there are some many medical professionals who you don't practice in one place. You have multiple, and some have like their own office. So you consult in one place and then you practice in different places. So oftentimes the Google business profile is your personal name in the location that you consult. That's usually the best place to start. And then if you have a more permanent place, or if you're part of like a broader medical practice, it's still worth it putting your own personal name in there, but with the address of the medical practice as well. Because what we're seeing right now is a lot of people are actually searching more on Google Maps than they are searching on Google itself.
That's
when it comes to medical professionals. And so your locality, oftentimes, let's say, for example, you're a cardiologist, people are typing in cardiologist near me, and Google is giving you results based on what is within a certain location. There's other factors. It's not just location. It's, the number of reviews you get, the 5-star reviews, the keywords in those reviews. Do you have photos up on the profile? Is the profile completely filled in? These all influence your visibility overall as well.
I think there's just so much just on that alone, right? And so Google business review, Google business. One of the things that I always feel a bit, yucky about is that asking patients to write a review. And I think sometimes that's also not encouraged in our profession because, we have advertising standards, for instance, in aesthetics or cosmetics and that sort of stuff. They say you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do a lot of things. And, it's very hard to overcome that sort of regulatory sort of barrier for a lot of people. And obviously there are practices that have hundreds and hundreds of reviews, and there's practices that have 7 reviews, and most of them are just people complaining about something that hasn't worked out. What is the general sort of vibes on that? And,
I've studied the APRA guidelines a lot. And so if you bring it back to first principles basis, what APRA is trying to avoid medical professionals from doing is to mislead and to take advantage of the vulnerability of patients. That's all it is. And so if you simply use that as a guiding principle, then anything about like before and after images and this and that, like it's all, you can kind of use that as a guiding principle just to understand how to make decisions. So unless you're just going to really kind of like milk it and take advantage of it, which most medical professionals won't, then generally you're pretty good, right? And so without going to the tactical side of like the APRA guidelines, what I generally say around testimonials is that it's more of a psychology shift. And I got taught this by Vin Zhang, who's a mentor of mine, he's a communications coach. And he basically said, because people used to, they used to go up on stage and they're like, oh, what if I make a mess of myself? What if I embarrass myself? I put a video out, I'm just like making a fool of myself. If I ask patients for a testimonial, am I just being a greedy, whatever to try and make money? And he says, just shift the mindset and understand it's not about you, it's about them. So you're here to serve. And so if you're here to serve them, then what are you doing? So the act of asking for a testimonial in itself is not about some kind of self-fulfilling need that the medical practice or the individual doctor needs, but it's about helping the next patient who needs to make a decision and get the same level of care that you do. And if you understand that, then all of a sudden, the way you articulate it to the patient after, and I don't know of any patient, if you helped a patient, whether it's you cured them or you helped with ailments or whatever that you've driven, are they not very happy to provide some level of testimonials or feedback, so that the next patient can find the same doctor that they benefited from as well, right? So I think that's just more of a psychological mindset shift. That
does make a lot of sense. I mean, even as you're saying that, when I look at it, that's almost like a burden lifted, right? It's not, it's not
about you.
It's not about me. It's about them.
100%.
Wow, that's really good.
Okay. So I think Google definitely a big one. Personal brand website, another one. Social media. Then we've got LinkedIn. TikTok's a start up and coming one as well. Now, TikTok and Instagram are somewhat similar. And then we've got YouTube, which, you know, I've talked a lot about, is this growing, you know, space that a lot of doctors can, you know, sort of, or medical professionals can actually take care of as well. So when you Google a doctor's name or any professional's name, it's usually personal brand website plus all of those social media platforms. Yep. And then the only other one that's missing is Wikipedia.
Oh, yeah.
And Wiki is a funny one because it's an open source platform.
Yeah.
But I know of some professionals who write their own wiki, which I'm like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But if you're well known enough, then generally you kind of get a wiki for yourself as well, right?
Yes.
And usually by that stage, you've kind of got 7 or 8 results. And what that does is it takes up the first page of Google.
Yeah.
And we have a joke in marketing world where basically like the best place to hide a dead body is on the second page of Google because no one goes to the second page. And that's because if you don't take up that first page, you're not visible. No one actually goes looking for you as well.
Yes.
And so just simply by claiming those handles, it's like claiming a domain under your own name. Like in your case, it's like Dr Bi Mian. .com.au or drb.com.au. And then all of the Instagram handles, you know, your Google business profile, all that sort of stuff. That in itself, even if you didn't post anything, is enough to take up that first page and control the narrative and your visibility as well.
Obviously, if your name's unique enough. Yeah. All right. I like to bury the dead body.
It's a bit more for the medical professional.
And like that's a great advice. And so those are the things that you talked about are you know, on the online presence, but reputation and marketing is also very physical, you know, on a face-to-face basis, because as we go through our medical careers, we come in contact with tons and tons of doctors, you know, through internship, residency, you know, everyone's moving around and talking about people. And so you almost build up a whole network of people that you've come across during your training, whether you've actually physically worked with them or not, or it's just like, oh, they worked with my friend and they've always say, oh, that registrar is such a great person and all that sort of thing. So I guess also the physical reputation matters a lot. And I just want to give one particularly interesting story is that we've all come across the, you know, I call them the ball breakers, right? You know, they're the registrars that are really hard ass. You know, they'll make the intern cry and upset people sometimes. And you know, they might be going through their own personal reasons or whatnot. And I remember one of these instances happened to one of my juniors, and one of the things that I told them is that I basically called a person and say, hey, you know, you can't do something like that because we're in 2025 now. That stuff is, you can't make juniors cry, first of all. And then I gave them a little bit lecture on, you know, that person you make cry could be your future referral base. Yeah. And, you know, the one thing is that, you know, God forbid they work in the same region as you and you need a referral from them. And you know what? You probably don't even remember that person. You won't even know. No. Yeah. And I've heard this so many times and time again, you know, after they get off phone, say, oh, that person's really nasty, you know, like I don't like them. And, you know, in my slightly rebellious way, I'll say, you know what? That will come back to bite them. Don't worry, because when they finish, they'll start going around to their colleagues, looking for work, looking for referrals. And that lowly intern that they bullied, chances are they'll become a GP or someone else. And when they come through the clinic, they're not going to remember you. Absolutely. But that GP will remember you as that, you know, say the surgeon that was really nasty to them when they were a little baby. And I can guarantee you're not going to get a single referral from that practice.
Totally. Yeah. I think, I mean, it's that classic adage, you know, it's not about, people will remember how you make them feel, not what you say to them as well. I think one of the most formative books that I remember reading, I don't know if a lot of people read it, was like Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And man, that was the amount of examples that he showed in that book about, you know, some of the things that you need to do in order to, exactly as you mentioned, protect your reputation. Because it's the one thing that follows you around to your deathbed.
Yeah,
it is not something that you can just decouple yourself from. And oftentimes has to do with the actions and the things you say and the things that you do to people.
Say and do sometimes.
Yeah.
Or someone say about you as well. Because like sometimes things are taken out of context. And, one of the things that happen is that you do something stupid, it gets plastered on the internet.
Yes.
Like the anaesthetist in the UK, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, for
those having a sexy good time.
There was this anaesthetist that basically was in the middle of work and then decided to take a break, and then went and had some hanky-panky time with a scrub nurse and then got caught for it.
Yep.
I mean, at the end of the day, nothing bad happened to the patient, but
now that's going to follow him around.
Now that's going to follow him around for the rest of his life. Every time someone Googles it. So as you mentioned earlier, he probably needs to have a social media manager and bury that into the second page.
He needs one of those John Wick cleanup crew that comes in, and nothing happens. Like there's nothing. There's no blood. There's nothing.
Sanitize.
Sanitize
the thing.
Completely.
So
by the way, we're not John Wick's cleanup crew when it comes to this.
So it's it's very interesting, isn't it? And I'm just curious. Like, have you ever had a client come to you and say, there's some not so great things about me on the internet, and how do I wipe it?
Well, we haven't had anyone do anything like really terrible. I mean, that's like that.
It's not the worst thing you could have done.
It's not. You're not. Yeah.
But like, it's
not professional.
It's not professional. No, and to be very honest, if he took 8 minutes out and went and took a shit, for example, nobody would have cared. So I don't think it was really that patient safety, but it was the fact that
it was sensationalist. Was great for the news as well. It was great, right? Like the news latched onto that. They knew they were going to get clicks for it anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I haven't had anyone in that sort of level of severity, but I have had people go, look, I need to, bury this. I need to get rid of this sort of stuff.
Or control the narrative.
Control the narrative. Yeah. I think oftentimes it is difficult because even now we look at it as like as part of like even when we hire staff, we're not only are we doing, criminal background checks and we're doing, character references, we're doing digital footprint checks as well. This is a common thing now. And I don't know how common it is in the medical practice, in the medical industry as well. But I think that now digital footprint, it's like, how many times have we seen somebody do some tweet 10 years ago and they,
come back to bite them?
Comes back and bites them in the ass.
Yeah.
It happens a lot.
I mean, Trump's very good at doing that.
Trump's great at it. And so you have to kind of almost now be really careful about what you put out into the world as well. Yeah. There is no clean way. There's no nuke button that I can press that just wipes these things out. Yeah. It's oftentimes through eroding this over time. So
more positive stuff.
More positive stuff, Like take, for example, a lot of times oftentimes, you go to Google. Google's usually oftentimes the first place you go when you're trying to understand somebody, doing a background check on it. And Google has, its general search results, but it also has like the news as well. Yeah. And so the thing about, without making this some masterclass on like how SEO works, it's the idea is that the more you put out there, the more it's like a fine wine with content. The more content you put out there, more visibility you have out there, the more it ages with Google. And time is one of those things that Google very much so values. And let's say, for example, you come up with a brand new personal brand website. You might not be able to bury everything immediately, but I can almost tell you across a 6 to 12 month horizon, that website will rise through the ranks, and whatever was sitting there on that first page will get pushed down. That's why I recommend that you claim your social media handles, you get a personal brand website, you get your LinkedIn profile, get a domain name as well. Your domains,
especially if you have a common name.
That's it, exactly right. Because what that'll do is it'll just simply take up the first page of Google. Yeah. And just ensure that
you control that.
You control the narrative, because no one's going on that second page.
All right. I think that's all very sagely advised, Kan. And thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Yeah, we look forward to chatting more.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The information and opinions shared are not intended as personal financial advice. The content presented should not be relied upon for making financial investment or other decisions. Listeners are strongly encouraged to seek the advice of qualified financial or legal professionals before making any financial decisions. While we aim to provide valuable and accurate information, we make no guarantees regarding the completeness or accuracy of the content. Any reliance on the information provided is done at your own risk.